everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. This time with a new installment of Curriculum of Fear, the series in which I take a look at what's going on in education these days and all of the wonderful things that are probably completely destroying the next generation. Hope everyone's doing well on this Sunday morning. Thank you for joining me. Also, happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there, or mothers-to-be, as the case may be. My mother has received her flowers and a thank you card for 36 hours of her labor that went into making me absolutely perfect in every way. Let's see. So today, what happened? Well, as you may know, sometimes I just randomly come across different videos of things that I didn't expect to see. And the other day, I was just flipping through the things that YouTube was telling me I might be interested in, and I saw a name on one of the videos, and I was like, I know that name, don't I? And like so many other things in the world, when you've done this long enough, sometimes you come across familiar personalities, and today I have Sheldon Eakins. Now, maybe you remember Sheldon Eakins. I don't know. But way back in Curriculum of Fear 22, I think it was, he was being interviewed on a podcast by another educator. And so I saw the name. I was like, I know that name. And I looked up what he was talking about previously, and he was talking about equity in the classroom. This time, though, he's going to give us a guide on student empowerment with affinity groups. And for those of you who do not know what affinity groups are, well, if you know what employee resource groups are in corporations, just imagine that in schools, except that since we don't have, veterans or disabled people necessarily to divide kids by, it's mostly about race. It's mostly about race, especially in the classroom. So at least that's what I assume. I don't know. Mr. Eakins might tell us something completely different today because I haven't watched this yet. But that's my assumption going in. I am happy to have my assumptions be blown away. Unless I'm watching a Star Wars movie. In that case, my assumptions being blown away makes me sad. Last Jedi. Anyway, who is joining me on this wonderful adventure this morning and has gotten up at the crack of dawn, depending on where you are in the world? Matt Barnes, hello. Fun Time Bats, hello. Corey Suzuki, hello. Spyro Girl, hello. Zalbla, hello. Dr. Keeve, hello. Humble Clay, hello. Arc210, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Tia Florix, hello. No Name, hello. Let's see. And Nobody Not Me, hello. Eric Kai, hello. Gorebag Goes Camping, hello. And Chicago Mike, St. Michael, Ryan R. I think that's everybody right now. If I've missed anyone, I apologize. But we're going to get right into it. So just as a note, Sheldon Eakins, or I should say Sheldon L. Eakins, PhD, is currently, and was at the time I did my previous video, the Director of Special Education at Shoshone-Bannock School District, I believe in Idaho? Fort Hall, Idaho. He is also the founder of the Leading Equity Center, which I believe this is where this video is coming from. So with all that, let's see, I can do this too now. Guess what I can do? I can do this. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. So with all that as preamble, let's get into this. This clocks in at just over 13 minutes, so let's dive right in.
What's up, advocates?
Hey, what's going on?
I got a question for you.
Okay, you got a question for me. Can you guys hear all that? Make sure. I should have said I got a sound test, too. Get my morning water going here. No pepper jack. It's too early for that. Let's see. Sup, yo, coming in clear. Okay, good. All right, so what's going on?
Did we forget why we were here?
Well, depending on what religion you believe in or lack thereof, I suppose it's possible.
And here's why I asked this question. I've been very fortunate with the Leading Equity Center to do training with a lot of professional staff, teachers, school leaders, counselors, social workers, entire districts.
Okay, you're all over the place. All right, that could be a good or bad thing depending on what you have to say, I suppose.
And over the past few years, one of the things that I have recognized is just because we provide professional development training for our faculty and staff does not mean that our students' experiences will change. I'll say that one more time.
Okay, by all means. So just because you provide professional development doesn't mean the students' experiences will change. I need more context. Are they supposed to change?
Just because we provide professional development for our faculty and staff does not mean, does not guarantee that our students' experiences will change.
I guess it depends on what you are developing professionally and whether it has anything to do with the ultimate end result of the student experience. I don't know. I'm not an educator. Educate me.
So it goes back to my original question. Did we forget why we were here?
You know, actually, I take it back. That is a really good question, because with so many teachers that I've taken a look at these days, without any pre-screening or anything else, the overarching feeling I get from listening to them is that they no longer consider themselves to be educators, but rather gurus. And I'm not the first one to make this comparison, but a lot of the teachers I've listened to, they, at least rhetorically, remove parents from the entire equation, almost never bring up the relationship between the teacher and the parents in the process of a child's education, and talk more about how they have to shape the kids to become change makers or out and out activists for their particular ideology. So I think it's a good question. Have teachers forgotten exactly why they are there? It's not a bad question.
In today's video, I'm going to share why student empowerment is essential in our schools.
Okay, I'm all ears. Okay, well, I don't know if this is copyrighted music, so I'm going to skip ahead a second or three. Okay.
When I was a young child, I'll be honest,
I
was not the nicest kid.
Well, most kids aren't nice when they're young children because they don't know how to meter their emotions or have any social skills. So, but okay.
I wouldn't consider myself a bully. However, I definitely like to tease. Now, if you follow me, you know I like to make jokes. And I used to like to make jokes as a kid.
But now nobody can make jokes because any joke that offends somebody is verboten and will get you canceled, right? Yeah. Comedians are having a hard time these days.
But when you start to tease others, one of the things that you recognize is you never tease other students in front of the teacher.
Really? I don't know what school you went to.
Kids are smart enough to know that. High schoolers, middle schoolers are smart enough to know that.
Again, I don't know what schools you went to.
So as adults, as educators, we're working hard to be culturally responsive, and we're doing this equity work at our level, which is excellent. And I'm not trying to take anything away from that. But I don't want us to forget that when we are not around, when we have stepped out of the classroom, when we aren't in the hallways, when we're not sitting at the lunchroom table, things may happen.
Yeah, well, Schrodinger's classroom, I suppose that's possible, yes. If you leave the classroom, are the kids teasing each other or not teasing each other? In fact, it is both at the same time. Ooh, quantum physics.
Things like racism and bullying can happen.
And also Bible study and belly button picking and nothing. A lot of things can happen.
Imagine a child, a student, a middle schooler who is not part of the dominant culture.
Yes. Oh, not part of the dominant culture. Oh, okay. So, I don't know. What do you mean by dominant culture? Because you wouldn't be equating skin color with a particular way of thinking, behaving, or living, would you? Because that's what I assume you are saying.
They represent a small percentage within the larger scheme of the school.
You mean by racial demographics? Okay. I'll imagine that.
Not only that,
Mm-hmm.
but they are a student who does not have any adults who represent any of the identities that they represent.
So they are a student, and none of the teachers look like they do. And I'm translating here. I understand that that's not exactly what he's saying, but you'll forgive me if after going through countless rounds of this kind of, rhetorical devising around language, if I'm not already knowing what he's saying, even though he's couching himself as he says it, which is bizarre to me because these days you don't have to. There's not going to be the kind of uproar you might have otherwise caused 5-6 years ago by out and out saying skin color, race, and so on. It's kind of bizarre, honestly, but I suppose it's quaint in a way.
Now imagine their experiences throughout the school day when microaggressions occur.
Oh, yes, microaggressions occur. Yeah. Usually self-translated offenses.
When prejudice and discriminations happen.
Because they will happen. Because that's what you expect of the quote-unquote dominant culture reflexively, right? Because you know how someone's going to be treated because of what they look like. And you also know how people are going to treat others because of what they look like, right?
Perhaps when they're raising their hand and they don't seem to be recognized.
Perhaps.
A student may start to feel as if they are invisible.
Maybe
they have had an experience where a student has come up to them and has said something to them that was very hurtful.
Maybe.
And they went to their teacher and told the teacher what happened. And the teacher brushed them off and said, "Oh, Billy was just playing. Lighten up."
Yes, I'm sure these days that's exactly what a teacher would say if someone came to them with a racially charged complaint. I'm sure that's what would happen.
Let's say you have a Latinx student who has been told.
I'm sorry, you have a what student?
And said, "Oh, Billy was just playing. Lighten up." Let's say you have a Latinx student who has been told, "When are you going back to Mexico?"
Thank you, Matt Barnes. Does dominant culture apply toward white kids in mostly black schools? Asking for a friend. I don't know. When you talk in ambiguities, I can imagine quite a bit. But at the same time, given how many times I've heard about the dominant culture writ large, there's only so many places to go. But okay, a Latinx student, because actual Latino people really appreciate the word Latinx. But setting that aside, okay, when are you going to go back to Mexico? Okay, that happens a lot in your school? All right.
And let's say this student wasn't even Mexican. They're Guatemalan.
Oh.
Or you have an Asian student who's being teased or bullied and told, "Well, why did you bring COVID here?" This is all your fault. Your people's fault. Why do y'all eat dogs and cats and bats? All these weird animals. Why do you eat that?
Okay, so hypothetical all over the place. And certainly things I know, or at least in the whole, Latino thing, have happened in schools before, because I grew up in schools with kids, with assholes and bullies, and people saying nasty things because they could get away with it because they were kids. And the world kept turning. The COVID thing wasn't an issue, obviously, when I was a kid, but I can imagine quite a bit. So what if these things happen? What do you do then? How do you cure the world of kids making fun of other kids? Because, man, if you can figure that out, you have got a $1 zillion idea on your hands.
It's all your fault. You brought COVID here.
Yeah, and that happens a lot these days. Probably, I don't know. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Sigh, 99.9% of Spanish people hate the term Latinx or Latinx. Yeah, they've done survey after survey. I think doesn't refer directly to the Latinx thing, but when they were trying to cancel Speedy Gonzalez because it was offensive to Mexican and or Latino people, and all the Mexican and Latino people pushed back saying, "Hey, we love Speedy Gonzalez." I'm like, "Oh, sorry." Oh, man. Okay. Anyway, yes. Kids can be terrible, and they can say terrible things at times and rely on stereotypes. All right. You've stated your problem. What is your solution?
How does a student who experiences these types of blatant acts, and again, often not in an adult's presence, how do they respond to this?
Well, let's see. Now, I can't honestly say that the bulk of my teasing experience when I was young had anything to do with my race or ethnicity. But my height, my shyness, my glasses I had to wear, my overall, as compared to some of the other kids, weak frame, let's say. I grew out of it, thankfully. But no, I was teased and bullied and beaten up and everything else. How did I deal with that? Well, I'll tell you. It didn't make me more sociable, certainly. But I took it this way. Internally, I told myself over the years, I don't want to grow up to be that kind of person. In very minor incidences, I should say, I tried to go along to get along, but I just didn't have it in me. I didn't have it in me to pretend that I was happy to be around somebody who had bullied me or try to acclimate to their behavior to fit in. I simply lacked that mechanism. So how I handled it might not be the same as how other kids handle it. And you can't assume one or the other. But I'm curious to see what our educator has to say about it. Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Latinx is very Eurocentric. He needs to do the work. Yes, the work. Everyone needs to do this important work.
How do we empower our students and provide them with the language to advocate for themselves?
How do you get kids to stand up for themselves? I don't know. What do the parents say? What are you doing to bring the parents into this conversation? What conversations are the parents already having with their kids? Because, kids interact with each other outside of school, in the neighborhood, and so on. These issues aren't isolated to what teachers see or think they have happen. Where are the parents?
Every video, we talk about being an advocate because we recognize that we do not live in a just society.
So you go forth into the world thinking everything and everyone is unjust? Positive attitude, I suppose.
We remember those things. We have young children, 13 years old, 15 years old, 12, 10 years old.
9, 14. Do I hear a 13? Do I hear a... Yeah?
Who have these experiences every day. And they just need the language. They just need to know, how do I respond? What do I say when I need help and there's no one else around? It's just me and I'm experiencing these things. How do I respond?
I don't know. What advice do you have for kids and how to respond to other kids making fun of them, specifically about their race and or ethnicity?
Last year, right after the murder of George Floyd,
okay,
I had a superintendent reach out to me and she had the same question. She said, Sheldon, you've been working with our district for this past year, and we appreciate the work that you're doing. But in the middle of the pandemic, in the midst of Black Lives Matter protests and civil unrest due to the murder of George Floyd, we have students, and we don't have a lot of Black students, but we have students within our schools that need help.
And help regarding what? And what advice did you give?
They've expressed to us that they do not feel as if their voice is being heard. Sheldon, could you talk to our kids?
Voices, I don't understand what that means. It's too ambiguous. Voices being heard about what specifically? I need more details.
I said, yes, let's do this.
Well, since it's your job or your side job, I don't know which.
Because I felt that it was essential for us to get to the root of things. I met with this group of high school students, and they were representatives of multiple high schools within the district.
Okay, so it was a select number of students from multiple schools. Okay.
And we came together for 90 minutes.
An hour and a half. Okay.
I structured some implicit bias work. We engaged in some breakout rooms. We talked about how they felt as a result of the pandemic, coupled with George Floyd.
Yes, because these two things are in alignment with one another, I guess.
Now, this wasn't just a group of Black students. This was a mixture of students from all races. One of the things that some of the white students said was, I recognize police brutality is wrong. I don't know what to say. How do I support my peers? I'm not Black.
Yes, because police brutality only occurs from white to Black. And white kids have something to either apologize for or to look upon their Black peers as inherent targets or victims of police violence. Is okay.
I don't know what to say or do, but I want to stand in solidarity. I just don't know how.
So your white high school friend or student, sorry, did not understand the concept of being just friendly to somebody else, not being mean to somebody else, assuming someone else has been psychically traumatized by an event that occurred hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. Okay.
We unpacked all of this within 90 minutes.
Really? All of that in 90 minutes? That sounds like years worth of therapy kind of stuff, but okay, 90 minutes.
And I felt that it was so beneficial. The superintendent and the staff present in the session felt that there was much more work to be done because
Wait, I thought you got it all done in 90 minutes.
They discovered that although as adults, we sometimes believe that we know how our students are experiencing school every day, we understand how they are feeling, but it brought out a lot of stuff. Some of the things that the students talked about was how they felt like they've been racially profiled in the hallways.
Oh, okay. So making assumptions about someone on the basis of their skin color is wrong?
These conversations were very important, pivotal with creating more work to be done.
Yeah, more work to be done, because as long as there's work to be done, there's a paycheck to be drawn.
I had students say that they felt that the school was literally just trying to get them out of COVID and finish the school year, that they didn't care about their lives. Their lives didn't matter beyond getting them done with school.
I wonder who could have put that idea in their heads.
How do we figure out grades? What do we do for assessments?
The same things you've done in the past, because the pandemic does not change the mechanisms of assessing the quality of your work. Oh, wait, yes, it does. We have to make sure math no longer checks work and that you don't grade any kids because that might hurt their feelings. And thank you, Matt Barnes. In 90 minutes or your money back. If only. If only. Do you get your sanity back as well?
That seemed to be the focus. And that was the message the students got.
The message the students got, what? That because there's a pandemic, we don't have to do homework anymore? Or grades shouldn't matter? Well, I mean, some people are pushing that.
This past school year, we expanded upon this program. And what we did was we created a student affinity group.
A student affinity group. Okay, tell me about it.
Now, around the same time, when I was working with this group of students in North Carolina, I had another principal reach out to me for her school. They had a social justice club, and so their advisor and I worked together, and we said, let's do this work as well.
A social justice club. I can only imagine the kind of snacks at that meeting. Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. This from the ideology that calls humans bodies. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to know the details of this affinity group. But then I also kind of want to find out about this social justice club. I wonder what their slogan is.
And so we also created these sessions.
Okay, his tone of voice, that sounded really ominous all of a sudden. I'm going to back up a little bit. That sounded like
Justice Club. And so their advisor and I worked together and we said, let's do this work as well. And so we also created these sessions.
The descending tone of that, it sounds very serious.
So let's talk about it for a second.
Okay. For those of you listening at home, there's now a side card on the screen. Why is creating social justice affinity groups essential? Essential? Oh, okay. And what constitutes a social justice affinity group?
Why is creating social justice affinity groups essential?
That's what I just said.
Well, this goes back to my original example regarding our students who are not part of the dominant culture.
The dominant culture, he says with a weird smirk on his face.
They represent a small identity.
Okay, again, assuming by culture he means skin color, because I don't have any reason to believe otherwise. Skin color is not an identity. Skin color says nothing about who you are. If you believe skin color says something about who you are, I hate to tell you this, but you might be a racist. Or, at the very least, you are promoting racism.
It's in a small identity. Maybe it's racial.
Maybe it's racial? Okay, well then tell me what the dominant culture is. How do you define the dominant culture? Because that's how you've distinguished this so far.
Perhaps it's cultural.
Well, no. It's not perhaps or if. Okay. It's either one or the other. If you're going to categorize these students as being separate from the dominant culture, you have to define what you mean by the dominant culture. All right. I mean, is everyone in the school 90%, I don't know, Russian Orthodox, and the 10% is, I don't know, just Texan? I mean, what are you talking about?
Maybe it's ethnicity.
Maybe. Okay. Okay, so maybe the dominant culture in a school is race. Maybe the dominant culture in the school is culture. And maybe the dominant culture in a school is ethnicity. Is that... You're an educator, right?
Having confidence in one's identity is not always easy when your identity is not part of the dominant group's demographics.
Again, demographic does not equate to identity. But I'll read that again because it is a card on the screen. Having confidence in one's identity is not always easy when your identity is not part of the dominant group's demographics. Having confidence in myself was difficult in school when I did not behave in the same way as the people aggravating me. And those weren't identities. Those were behaviors. Those were the way kids treated each other. Now, I can't speak for every kid that's ever existed. I can't speak for every situation in every school. But I'll tell you this. The more that the adults in the room push the idea that identity is based on non-determinative factors in a kid's makeup, the worse things are going to get, because then you encourage everyone to look at each other on the basis of those same characteristics, which is the opposite of what you say you are trying to do.
Navigating a space where school staff and students do not validate students' lived experiences and needs may invoke silence and feelings of oppression.
May.
The bottom line is students need to occupy spaces in which they can be themselves.
And themselves, you mean?
Now, what is a social justice affinity group?
That is what I've been wondering this whole time. I've heard many different definitions. I go back to the employee resource groups that corporations instill, and they divvy them up mostly by race or ethnicity, sometimes by veteran status, things that actually constitute merit or special needs. What is a social justice affinity group?
A social justice affinity group is a group of students who share exclusion and isolation experienced due to their identity.
Okay, so it's a support group for bullied kids. Is that it? I mean, is it that simple? It's getting together kids who have been made fun of due to their identity. I wonder by what filter you decide the identity of this group. I can only imagine until you tell me specifically. But thank you again, Mr. Tickletrunk. Wonder what he'd think if we did this in, i.e., Africa. I don't know. It's a rare day, it seems, when someone pushing, and again, I can only assume because he's dancing around the terminology, anyone pushing racial segregation in their schools, I can only wonder what they would think if they had it shown to them that this is exactly what they were doing back in the 50s, but not making it sound all friendly and academically sound. Thank you, Lancelot652. Oh, good. He's making a hug box. I mean, that's part of it. But it's also using a very specific mechanism to make the group, I think.
Social justice affinity groups also include members willing to utilize their privilege in solidarity with members outside of the dominant school culture.
Right. Okay, so we're into privilege now. So these social justice affinity groups are made up of kids who believe in social justice, i.e., if you're a particular skin color, the condition of your life is X. And if you're a different skin color, the condition of your life is Y. If you are of this skin color, you're inherently oppressed. And if you're of this skin color, you're inherently privileged. Got it. Thank you, the Gay Rascal. This kind of thinking created the LGBT plus community. And look at that mess. Whenever I think about that whole line of thinking, I think back to Atheism Plus. If you guys don't know about Atheism Plus, because it has faded from memory to this point, look up the epic of Atheism Plus and see what was attempted to be done there with all of the, road to hell is paved in them good intentions. Yeah, that's where you start getting into some problems. That's where social justice starts putting itself into places that makes absolutely no sense. Okay, but anyway, so social justice affinity groups are for kids that have been taught to assess each other on the basis of skin color to get together and grieve together, or guilt trip each other, or pity each other, depending on which part of the dominant culture you belong to. That's what I'm getting from this.
Now, we have to keep in mind that these affinity groups are not just for those who identify with these historically marginalized identities. We also need others who are willing to utilize their privilege.
Yes, you said that. You said that. So marginalized identities are inherently disadvantaged. And by identities, we know what you mean, even if you're not saying it. And then other identities inherently have privilege that they have to go and confess to possessing at these social justice affinity groups, even if that person showing up is themselves disadvantaged economically, educationally, whatever. But we know where they stand in the hierarchy of things because of their identity. Mm-hmm.
Who recognize that they have privilege and are willing to stand in solidarity with them as well. So over this past school year, we have learned to work with middle schoolers, we work with high schoolers, and we have created these social justice affinity spaces.
Yes, that doesn't sound like indoctrination at all.
One of the things that we have discovered is a safe space is not enough.
Oh, you have to go further than just a safe space? All right, well, what else does it need?
Putting a rainbow on the door, saying I'm a safe haven, saying that I am an ally was just not enough. The students needed more than that.
Okay.
Our students wanted to learn the terminology.
Yes, please educate us on the language of this new order.
What is a microaggression? What are examples of a microaggression or a micro insult?
I'll tell you what. Here's an example of microaggression. Somebody comes up to me and says, how are you doing today? And I say, excuse me, do you look at me and think that I somehow need your comfort? Do you think that somehow I'm damaged? What are you saying? That's a microaggression. It's actually me transmogrifying something that's likely entirely innocent into a problem. There's an example for you. I mean, and you might think I'm making that up. I am most certainly not. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I think little Timmy needs to go to room 101. Yeah. So here's a question I have, and I know I'm not going to get an answer to it. Are these social justice affinity groups considered an extracurricular activity, or are they being conducted as part of the actual education curriculum at these schools? Is it voluntary, or is it mandatory? These questions, I do wonder.
Micro invalidation, micro assaults. What are those?
They are whatever you say they are, because they are so ambiguous and open to individual interpretation, and mostly just accusations without evidence most of the time. I got my feelings hurt, or I decided to be offended. Turn something into a microaggression or a micro assault. What else? Anyway.
What is implicit bias?
Well, heck, I've been trying to figure that out for years.
What is privilege?
I don't know. I don't know. What is privilege? These are all excellent questions. I'm not being facetious there. These are all excellent questions. Questions that you would think should be defined and answered pretty quick here so we all know what we're talking about. But yet, we're still almost complete with this presentation, and I still don't know what dominant culture equates to.
Do I have privilege?
I don't know. Do you? And if you do, are you going to apologize?
Could you break down race for me?
Oh, what? This is what happens in your social justice affinity groups? And who, might I ask, acts as the expert on race in these instances?
I need support with gender pronouns and my identity within the LGBTQ plus community.
And are you the one to provide that guidance?
How do I respond in situations that impact me negatively?
Well, here's the thing. If you're trying to grow up, unless there's something that's absolutely necessary to react to, you just ignore it and move along with your life. Because learning how to roll with the punches, as it were, is an important skill. If you're going to stop and bicker with every person that ever irritates you, you will get nowhere. So choose your battles, what's worth fighting, what's worth getting all worked up over. These are important lessons to learn. However, it sounds like what you're teaching these kids is to approach every difficulty as the end of the world. And I can only imagine what kind of adults you are creating with that kind of thinking.
They wanted to learn the terminology so that they could articulate their responses in a way that made them feel empowered. Think about those times when you were a student, or maybe you can relate to being the only person or part of a smaller population in a larger space of students, and experiences you might have had as a student with microaggressions, bias, and privilege.
Let's see. I got glasses when I was 6. So basically, from first grade throughout the entirety of my schooling, I had glasses. And in my first grade class, I was the only kid with glasses. And boy, howdy, I was in trouble. Four eyes, nerd, etc. Picked on, teased, and so on and so forth. And you know what I did? I was 6. I cried and I felt bad. You know what? But I grew up. And there wasn't anything implicit about what was going on. I mean, it was kind of, I was wearing it on my face, you know. But in a way, it kind of was a good thing, because when it happens that early, you build up a resistance to it pretty quick. And the kind of resistance you build up to being teased or made fun of for silly things that have nothing to do with anything that you have no control over, it's a skill that's actually, if you can believe it, very valuable as you age. So as difficult as it was growing up and being made fun of by some kids, being bullied by others, in the end, I suppose, the thinnest of silver linings, I grew up and I got past it. Some people don't, you know, and I don't necessarily feel like superior to people that don't. Everybody handles these things differently. But when you start educating kids to be oversensitive sponges, you're not helping them. And you're not helping anybody around them. You really aren't.
Wouldn't it have been nice if you had received training, or maybe you did? Perhaps you had someone supportive of you that helped you navigate your school day and provided you with a lot of the terminology and language and ways to respond in situations.
Yeah, you know who that was? That was my dad and my mom, my parents. You know, parents? Are parents part of this anywhere? Yeah, see, because not everything in my life happened in school, and not every lesson I was to learn came from a teacher. Because I had parents who were raising me, parents who were more important to me than any one teacher, which seems to be the opposite of how teachers see themselves these days, our speaker included. My father told me to grow up. He said, kids are stupid, kids are mean, they'll be working at a gas station while you have a good job someday. That's the kind of things my dad told me, you know? And as a kid, it's difficult to see the wisdom in those things until you get much older. But you know what? He was right. You know, hindsight being 20/20, my dad's attitude was the healthy attitude about it. I didn't know it at the time, and it took a long time to learn, and that's just how things work. But on this day of all days, Mother's Day, and by extension, Father's, let us recognize the parents, shall we? Are you going to acknowledge the presence of parents in these kids' lives at all?
But if you didn't have that, wouldn't it have been nice to have been able to be coached, to receive some training?
You mean to be indoctrinated into a philosophy of endless oppression and victimization? Or being told that you inherently are the victimizer and oppressor? That's what you mean, don't you?
And feel empowered as a student?
How empowered is it to be told that you're privileged and that you automatically must take the caretaker role over anyone who looks different than you do? Is that empowering? And who is that empowering?
The next thing that the students told us is that they wanted real scenarios. What do I say? How do I respond? Break this down to me.
They're putting their trust in you to handle these things. And what wisdom did you impart?
My classmate just told me, you look good for a dark-skinned girl.
Aha. You look good for a dark-skinned girl. And who said that to her, might I ask? Was it someone from the dominant culture?
What do I say to that?
Thanks, with a bewildered look on your face, roll your eyes, and walk away? Because, what?
So we provided them with real life experiences, scenarios, and we said, okay, here's the scenario.
Okay, so what does someone do in that situation? What do you say back when someone says that?
This is what happened.
Yeah.
How would you respond?
Yeah.
And we would unpack that.
Yeah.
We created breakout rooms for our students to be able to engage with one another in smaller settings.
Okay, so what was the response to be had when someone said, you look good for a dark-skinned girl?
And then we gave them opportunities to do some work.
Some work.
This wasn't a set of venting sessions.
Are you sure about that, John Cena?
There was some action behind this. We helped our students create a plan that they could present to their administration.
What?
Some of the challenges at their school.
Wait, so you trained these kids to take your ideas and ideology about dealing with conflict back to the administration? The students. You weren't talking to the staff. Okay.
And we taught them how to advocate for change.
Advocate for change. Right.
See, the Leading Equity Center is all about advocacy.
No, I believe it.
Now, have you thought about creating a student affinity group at your school?
Boy, howdy.
At your district?
Ooh.
Are you looking at ways to get it started?
I totally, that's why I came here. I wanted to know, how do you start a social justice affinity group in my school?
Maybe you're an individual who wants to get this work done, but you just don't know where to get started.
What? Wait. Individual? Individual? Dude, I am an identity. Individual? What? You're talking crazy.
You're toying with the idea. You know that the parents have asked for it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the students have asked for it.
The parents have asked for social justice affinity groups. Am I mistaken in thinking this is the first time he's mentioned parents in this entire presentation? The parents are asking for social justice affinity groups. Really? If you say so.
And you just need help getting it off the ground.
Yes.
We can help.
Okay. I'm ready to hear the help. Tell me how we do this.
We created 10 workshops that will take your students through a progression, starting with implicit bias and self-awareness, and ending with empowerment and advocacy.
Oh my gosh. There's a lesson plan? Oh no. Is this going to become a series? I mean, a series within a series? Oh boy. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk again. See, I told you he needs to do more of the work. Yes, the work. This important work. This vital work. Do the work. The work. If you want to see a video about the work, go to my channel, click on the magnifying glass, and just look up the work. And I think it's one of my it is one of my earliest videos. I think even before I started calling them Curriculum of Fear. I think. But anyway, yeah, it's about the work. It's about a couple of teachers that were given awards for their social justice efforts, and just I can still just hear them now denigrating themselves for their skin color while accepting these awards. It was something to behold. Okay, anyway, how do I start this? You have you have a lesson plan on your website, I'm assuming. Okay. If they're articles, maybe I'll read a couple in future streams. I can't wait.
This is not just for your students of color.
It isn't? Really? I'm so shocked.
This is for your students who are supportive, again, who recognize that we do not live in a just society.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn more, if you want to set up this program at your school,
yeah,
it's called the Advocacy Room,
yes, an
affinity space for student voices.
Uh-huh.
There's a link in the description down below
with
more information.
Okay, well, I'll be sure to check that out. Maybe you know what? Maybe I should try. Maybe I should try doing this on the nights that I host Lords of the Night. We'll go over the lesson plan to try to institute social justice affinity groups on the show. You know, between Satsu and I. Oh boy, I can't wait.
Creating a safe space for students or putting up an ally sign above the classroom door is no longer enough to accommodate our students who have historically been marginalized.
An ally sign above the classroom door. It is the first thing that came into my head is like a ward, a magical ward. You ever see Skeleton Key, the movie Skeleton Key? Decent movie. Or probably, more fun was Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight with the blood wards around the windows and things. That's what I was thinking of. Put an ally sign above the door and that'll cleanse anyone who walks through.
Many of the students in our schools have experienced microaggressions.
I'm sure that they have, since they are mostly self-interpretive.
Discrimination, prejudice, and stereotypes from their peers and even their school staff.
You mean like, I know that you're privileged, you need to learn how to be an ally? That kind of discrimination or prejudice from students or staff? Like you are promoting.
We cannot forget why we are here. And we have to recognize the importance of student empowerment.
Is it really empowerment if you're teaching them that they are either inherent victims or inherent villains? Does that sound empowering to you?
Are you ready to transform the culture inside your school or your district?
Oh boy, am I ever. I'm going to take this straight to Lords of the Night, man.
We're here for the kids. And we all have to recognize the importance of student empowerment.
I know that you're here for the kids because you got to get them while they're young to get them indoctrinated more fully.
Let's continue to be a voice in leading equity.
Okay. Well, not a whole lot of detail there, but advice for the future, I suppose. I'm going to have to go check out these lesson plans, these modules in creating social justice affinity groups in schools. Perhaps I will go over one on Tuesday night when I host the Lords of the Night. But I'll do that plug shortly. Next couple of minutes or so, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or otherwise, or observations about the presentation, put them in the chat now. Be sure to tag me in your comments so I can distinguish it from other things, because now I'm looking at the StreamYard chat box thing. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. You know who else has experienced microaggressions? Dusts off Gary Oldman impression. Everyone! I can't do the Gary Oldman thing without probably blowing out my throat, but blowing out my throat, boy, that didn't sound right. But yeah, The Professional, Leon, The Professional, great movie. If you can find the director's cut version, there's a couple extra scenes in there that are pretty cool. But yeah, that was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It's so cool. I mean, it was one of those things where it's R-rated and it's violent, but there's this weird humor, kind of comic bookish to it, and just made it great. And seeing Jean Reno for the first time and how great he was, and I think that might have been my first introduction to Gary Oldman, even though he'd been acting for years to that point, obviously, or at least recognizably. I can't remember, did that come out before or after Bram Stoker's Dracula? Either way, yeah, he was one of my favorite actors after that movie for sure. Let's see. Dr. Keefe says, Scriblight, Satsu doesn't want it. Oh, hi, Satsu. Well, Satsu, see, here's the problem. Just like Dr. Eakins here, and I say doctor because he's got a PhD, so I'll be respectful. I know what's good for you. Satsu, I do not hate you. I'm your ally. I am your ally, Satsu. It is very important to me that I see myself as an ally. I'm doing this for you. Satsu. Raziel says, PhD doesn't equal doctor. I know. I'm just being safe. I don't want to commit a microaggression by leaving off the honorific. Okay, just in case. Just in case. I wouldn't want to hurt anybody's feelings by not giving them the respect that they may think that they're owed. I'm just making sure. I'm trying to learn something from this, Raziel. Okay, I'm trying not to be a microaggressive. Art210, Scribe is doing the work. That's me. See, I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. Let's see. Anything else, guys, that you'd like to shout out there? Of course, anybody watching the live chat can see all the comments. I'm trying to pick out the ones that jump out at me. Dr. Q says ally is the same as accomplice. No. Ally, or you say ally to accomplice, like you would advance. Yeah. Well, there is a progression. Being an ally is just like it was very rhetorical. All right. This is how I've understood it now. If you're an ally, you say all the right things. But if you're an accomplice, you actually take physical action and put yourself in physical harm's way along with the rhetoric you're giving. It's not enough to just be an ally. Let's see. Dr. Keeve, yes, I'm saying advancing from ally. Yeah. It is a ranked scale kind of thing. I don't know if they have like badges or ribbons to denote whether you've graduated from one level to the next. And I'm trying to think if there's something after accomplice. I don't think you can get past accomplice if you're the wrong, whatever it is, skin color or orientation or whatever. I don't think you can, I don't know if there's a level past accomplice. I mean, unless it is something that you could conceivably change about your lifestyle to then join as an ultimate act of allyship. I don't know. I'd have to think more about that one. Let's see. Gorbag says, an accomplice is part of an actual crime by law. Yes, the legal definition of accomplice is someone who also takes part in a crime. That is not necessarily how it has to be interpreted, but go your own way, I suppose. And Dr. Keefe says, human shield. That is the most useful ally, is a human shield. And you see this, and I'm not making this up for those of you that don't know, you see this a lot at protests where they will instruct the white protesters to be in front of everybody else because obviously the cops will not take action against their fellow white people or something. Or if they do, the first people to get the damage will be the white allies / accomplices so that they can make penance for their privilege or something. But with all that, everyone, I think I'm going to call that here. I still have to have breakfast. It's that early. So everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this. I hope you learned something. I know I did. I learned that there is a whole lesson plan for this kind of stuff, which I may bring up on the next Lords of the Night. And if you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find both of us tomorrow night, Monday night, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Satsu's channel for the Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. I will be hosting the show on Tuesday on this channel, same time, wherein I might go over one of these lesson plans. We'll see. But until then, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone who donated, thank you so much. Thank you very much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone is so well behaved, you have very little to do. I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. Happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there. And if you have not said Happy Mother's Day to your mother yet, please make the effort to do so. I know they'll appreciate it. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.